Hello everyone, welcome to a new session from Women Tech Makers and GDG Mysore. Uh, we conduct events like these every week, and about Women Tech Makers and GDG Mysore, we conduct events to promote ideas about open source technologies and also Google technologies. And if any of you are interested in speaking out in an event like this or talking about some technical event, you can contact us. You can contact Miss Usha Rangaraju. She is the chapter lead and she is India's first woman Kaggle Grandmaster. You can follow her on LinkedIn and Twitter. Her links are given below in the description. And these events are successful and successfully conducted at a really well-known frequency, and it's possible only because of collaborative effort of the core team. We have these many core teams, as you can see, and coming if you want to look into more and more events like these, you could always check out these links which you have shown here. You can check out our meetup web pages and stay tuned for further events. And we have three community partners here with us. We have Co-Learning Lounge. Co-Learning Lounge is a online collaborative learning platform where there are a lot of data science resources you can check out. You can download it. We have Applied Singularity. They also provide data science resources. They also have an app. You can check it out. And we also have Confub. Confub is an online platform which helps you to host events like conferences. So I've put up these links on the description below. Please do check them out. And without further delay, we are going to start the session with Rishabh Tiwari. Rishabh Tiwari is an undergraduate student at IIT Dhanbad, and he is also the youngest Kaggle master in India, and he's going to be talking about TPUs. So we're going to start with him. Rishabh, can you share your screen?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So let me start with my slides. Let me share my screen. I think it's visible now. Kevin, can you
Yeah,
confirm it?
we can
Yeah.
see it. Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about TensorFlow Keras with TPU. So it's going to be my first session, and I'm quite excited about it. So it's quite strange to talk like this. Like I can't see and hear you all, but I'll try to give my best. So let me introduce myself first. So there's a short introduction. Like, my name is Rishabh Tiwari. I'm an undergraduate student at IIT Dhanbad. I'm also a computer vision researcher. I have a publication in IEEE ISBI 2020 EndoCV workshop. It was related to deep learning on endoscopic images. I'm an active member at AI team member at Cyber Labs, the official cyber club of IT ISM Dhanbad. And the thing that I'm most proud about is, like, a week ago I became the youngest Indian Kaggle competitions master. So it is a huge achievement for me. So I'm ranked, right now I'm ranked 954 among that is in top 1% in Kaggle competitions. I have won one gold, two silver, and one bronze medals. To know more about me, you can check out my resume. I will share the slides with you after the session. Here I have put the link. You can also, if you have to discuss something, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will be happy to connect with you all. So that is all about myself. So now this is the outline of the session, how the session will go. So the session is about, like, training an NLP model. To be specific, it is XLM Roberta. It is a multilingual NLP model. So we will be training it on TPU for toxic comment classification. Like you will be given comments. They can be in 7 different languages, various languages, and you have to tell like if it is toxic or not. So its usage is increasing day by day with all the social media, like Facebook, Twitter. So it's becoming very useful, like these kind of models, and these are being put into production. So first we will see an animation video, where we will get to know how CPU, GPU, and TPU training on these uh, kind of processors are, like what is the difference, how much speed up we get. We will talk about that. Then we will go through the code in which we will see how to connect with the TPU server. So we will be doing all this on Kaggle notebook. It will be easy for you to access also. I will also share the link of the notebook with you all. Then we will see how to prepare data sets. Like data loaders are a bit different if you're training on TPU. It's quite different. So we will see how we can do that. Now we will create custom models. Like people have to do different tasks. Like using the pre-trained model will give you some kind of baseline performance, but for doing different tasks you have to create custom models. So we will talk about that. Then creating custom training loop. So in Keras this functionality is very easy, like model.fit does all the work, but we will try to create a custom loop in which you can control all the, like what's happening there, you can control all of it. So like I said, we will start with an animation video. So uh, this is official Google's demo video. So we will talk about neural network first. Okay, so in neural network, you know that these kind of pixels, we take out the pixels of the image, then we will do matrix multiplications to get the value of neurons. Here we have to classify this image as 0 or 1 or 2 and so on. So you can see here, so like this. So to get the value of neuron 0, you have to do a matrix multiplication between the pixel and another weight matrix to get the value of 0 neuron. Similarly, you will have to do a matrix multiplication to get the value of 1 neuron, and so on. So the processing speed, now it all comes down to the your processing speed, how faster you can do these multiplications. So okay, so this is the weight matrix for neuron 7. So here we will be multiplying it to get the value of neuron 7. Similarly like 8, and similarly like 9. So here you can see the activation value of 8 is greater than activation values of 7 and 9. So the value of its value is uh, 8. So it is the basic thing that happens in all the deep learning. It's all about matrix multiplication. Now CPU is very fast, but it is a very general processor. Like it's not only for matrix multiplication. It is used for many purposes, and it's good for many things. But it is less faster than GPU and TPU. So here you can see that everything is happening sequentially, all the multiplications. In comparison to that, you can see GPU has a lot of operators in a single processor, and they all act parallel. So we get huge amount of speed up using the GPUs. So GPU is also not particularly made for matrix calculation, but it is much faster than CPU. Now we will see how TPU works. So TPU is specifically built for this. Here we know that a matrix multiplication can be done parallelly because all the multiplications are independent of each other. So the parameters are distributed everywhere, and matrix multiplication done is done parallelly. It is like a grid, you can say. So it gives us like 420 teraflop. The TPU we will be using will be V3 only in Kaggle. So we will not be discussing about pod. Pod is like connecting many TPUs together. Like it is a mesh, so you can connect all the TPUs, many TPUs together. So we will now go through the code. So I will be sharing the notebook with you all. So first of all, you have to select accelerator in the notebook. You are given like 30 hours per week to try out TPU, to train on TPU. So I have here, yeah, one multilingual dataset I prepared custom for this only. So it is active. The draft session is starting. It will take few seconds. And if anybody has any question, please comment down. I will try to answer it. I'm not an expert in TPU, but I've recently given a jigsaw competition training on TPU in which I won silver. So I know basic things about it. So I thought to take a session on this because like I will also get to learn new things, and it is a like emerging technology. All will be using it day or another. So it's quite good to discuss it. So first we will be like any other program. First we will be importing all the necessary libraries we will be using throughout the program. So let's just run it. The TPU, you can see the TPU usage and all that here only. Okay, so in NLP these are like important variables. The batch size we are gonna use, max length, like when we create encodings of text, what is the max length of encodings we want. So we are using different learning rates for head and transformer. I will be discussing about it later in the session. So this is the pre-trained model. We will be fine-tuning it. Then auto we will be discussing later, and this is tokenizer, like to encode text into numbers. You can see. So this is also pre-trained. It comes with a model, like it is trained for this model. So we will just run the cell. Get it. Okay, it is now loaded. So this is the function you need to connect to a TPU. So it returns three things. So TPU, it is the cluster, and then strategy. We will be using it often and often in our program. So it like to understand TPU clearly, you can understand with an analogy like it is like a multi GPU, like 8 GPUs working together. It is like this. So you can see here, it is called as replicas. So there are like eight replicas working together, and whatever we like load, like model optimizer, they will be loaded in all the replicas. Now we have defined batch size as 16. So at one time, 16 examples will go in one replica, then 16 in second, 16 in third, fourth. So we will be having global batch size of 16 into number of replicas. That is 16 into 8. That is 120. So in parallel, yeah, we will be giving 16 examples to first replica, 16 to second, and all these will be running parallelly, and we will be getting the result. Then we will aggregate the result, we will compute the loss, and then we will backpropagate. So to understand, you can understand with the analogy. If you have trained with models with multi GPU, you will be able to understand how this works. So strategy we will be using for like loading our models, optimizers in all the replicas together. So global batch size, I told you it's 128 here. So we are now connected to the TPU. It is the address where TPU is running. TPU is like a service, so it's running here. It's not in our notebook. So this is the function we will be using to encode our text. It just makes use of tokenizer. If you are aware of the basics of NLP, you will be knowing that tokenizer is like it's pre-trained and it's used to convert text into numbers. All the deep learning works on numbers. So it will convert to numbers, our text to numbers. Create this data set. I will discuss it once I will use it. So here is the my data. So you can see I have printed the head. So here I have like comments. They can be short, long, of any size. And then I have labels like if it is toxic or not. It is multilingual data, as you can see. It's not purely English. It has 7 languages in total. Then they will run this. So like regular encode, like it will take some time. So you can see here that we have 2 lakh examples. So like running it on GPU or CPU will take a much longer time than TPU. Therefore, we are using here like TPU is preferred here. So I have cut down the data for this session, but it had like 20 lakh examples of data. So TPU is very necessary for NLP inspection. So it will take 1 minute to encode all the data. Uh, we have given 192 as maximum tokenizer is already defined. We are just giving the text and it will return in number. So let us run all the cells. It is computing. So we can discuss like this is the validation data I prepared. Similarly, we will encode this also. Yeah, we can talk about test data set. Like so, we will pass here x and y, and we will tell whether it is used for training or prediction. So this is quite common in like TensorFlow. Till here, it is quite common. To create dataset, you use predefined library TensorFlow dataset. So this line is combining x and y together to create a dataset if y is given for training. Then if training is on, it is shuffling the data and it is repeating. It means once the whole data is finished, it will start repeating itself. So here we are giving the batch size. We are giving batch size as global batch size, not batch size, because once we take out 128 examples, we're going to distribute it among all the replicas. So here we are using a strategy. So I told you that we will be using strategy whenever we have to distribute something to all the TPU replicas. So this function helps us to create a data set which will like distribute like 128 into 16 batches to every replica. So this one line uses strategy to convert our data set into distributed data set. This data set means a distributed data set. I hope it's encoding is finished. We can see the encoding like explain dot shape. So shape is like 2 lakh 192 because we have set max length as 192. So the encodings look like this. If data is text is small, it will be padded with 1. If data is big, uh, these numbers will appear more. Like you can see, like so all the text is now encoded. Similarly, we have encoded validation too. So in validation, we have 80,000 examples. We have encoded it and created the data set. Now we have test data set of 60,000. We don't have labels of it, of course it is a test data. Again, we will encode it. It will take much less time because it's only 60,000. We have created the distributed data set of every like train, val, and test. It will be computed in it. Okay, let's discuss about the model. We have defined the a name of pre-trained model earlier only. You can see it's Excellent Roberta large. This is a pre-trained multilingual model for classification. So I will load the transformer. Transformer is like the backbone of the model, and we will then, to fine tune, we will attach some dense layers in it. So it gives us features of size 1024. Now I will attach one dense layer in it to reduce it to 256 activation value as usual. I will apply some dropout and then again dense layer with sigma dot activation. I have used the name custom for a reason. We'll see it later on. So I think yeah, the encodings are created. Now this is just a function to create the model. Now we will be using it under strategy.scope. Again, when we if we run this uh, without a strategy.scope, then the model will be created on CPU. But we want our model in all the TPU replicas. So your whatever runs inside strategy scope, it will be done in all the replicas. So we will be creating optimizer and model in all the TPU replicas. So here I have used two optimizers. You can see I told you about like learning rate for transformer and learning rate for head. So the transformer is also is already pre-trained, so I do not need to use high learning rate for it. So I do not want to change its weights uh, much. So therefore, I will be using a very low learning rate for it. So it's about 5e minus 6 if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's 5e minus 6, and for dense layers we will be using 1e minus 3. It's quite like normal doing this in fine tuning to use two different optimizers and learning rates. So here you can see our CPU is working hard to put all the models in all TPU replicas. Okay, so again, for all the laws and metrics will be created in under strategy.scope only. I'm using binary cross entropy here. So it's a little bit different in doing on TPU. Like you have to create, you have to use laws as usual. Then here, this one is not like average loss. So we just pass the per example loss. It just averages them out to give a one loss object. It's quite simple. Nothing much to learn. So model is creating. Then we should write this. Here we are using the metric AUC because like in competition also the metric result was AUC. I hope it's quite clear. If you have any question or something to ask, just comment it.
So, Rishabh, I think a few people in the comment section were asking about your code. Like, if you could share it with them.
Yeah, I told that I will share the link of the notebook once the session is done. Should I share it right now?
You can, of course, you can do that, or you could spend some time later and directly giving your link to the comment section on YouTube.
Yeah, I will share the link in the comments only. Let me see if it's public or not. Just a second. let the model get loaded. Till then, I try to share
Yeah,
it.
sure, sure. How long does it generally take for this model to load?
It takes like 2 to 3 minutes only.
Hmm.
It's Yeah, it's loaded. Let me share it. Yeah. Okay. So I'm giving it in private chat. You can just paste it and provide notes. Yeah. So you can see here the model summary. It is uh, it is taking input size of 192. That is the max length. Then model is working on it to output 1024 feature size. Then we are creating two dense layers to output like whether it is toxic or not. So it has a lot of parameters, and there are many models which are quite bigger than this also. So loss is also ready. Now this is the custom training steps I have written. So I will just quickly go through it. So like in Keras, it's much easier. Model.fit. I will show you another code in which you do not need like these types of steps and all that. But to get a good understanding of how TPU works, it's good to like write custom loops yourself. So I'm creating two learn trainable variables here because I've used different optimizer for head and transformer. So now you can see why I gave name custom uh, to the dense layers to differentiate it from the like other layers. So train step is quite similar to like TensorFlow one. It's nothing new here. Just to computing the gradients, then making the back propagation. Here we are applying the gradients. Now, train step is very common, but here comes the distributed train step. Like I said, everything will be going parallelly in all the replicas. So strategy again comes into play, and it makes the train step like go in parallel in all the replicas. Similarly, predict, we will have what prediction step that is quite common, just giving the model our features, means inputs, and then distributed prediction step like using this strategy to parallelize it all in all the replicas. Then here is prediction function, which makes use of this distributed step. Okay, so it's just one thing new here is to learn about this distributed train step. If you'll be using Keras, you will not come across this. So here is the train function I've created. So it just takes data set, val data set, how many steps you want to train it for, and like in NLP, the data may be very huge. So even one epoch may be enough for the model to overfit. So after training for few steps, like uh, one epoch is equal to length of training data divided by global batch size. It's like common deep learning term. So they will be validating our model after every few iterations, or you can say steps, to like save it from overfitting. So I've written it like this only. Just I will take out a tensor from this dataset I've passed, distributed dataset. Then I will give it to the distributed train step for training in all the replicas parallelly. It's a step counter to take count of how many steps we have done. So if we are taking validate every 200 years, if 200 steps are done, we will validate our model. Then we will do validation. Uh, here validation is happening. We will take out the metric, and if the metric is best, we are taking out of all the metrics in the history list. So if it is the best we have achieved so far, then it will save the model weights in best weights. And once we have reached the number of total steps, we will break from it, and we will restore the best model weights. So it is a common strategy, like you may have used it quite often. If the data set is very big, you don't like do for 2 epochs, 3 epochs. Instead, you do validation uh, after few steps, so that it doesn't overfit, and you get the best result on validation. So I think I have done. Let me run it. So yeah. Now it will start training on TPU. So it will have to like set up everything on TPU. It will take a quite like 2-3 minutes to start training, because the data set is very huge and all. But once it start, it will be very fast. Like in comparison to GPU, it will be like around 8 times or 6 times faster. So it is giving a warning about like it is a consume a large amount of memory. You can ignore it. Then let's look at just glance through another code, a public code, to see how Keras can make these steps so easy. Like you do not need to create distributed steps and all. But I will recommend to means start doing coding like this. And once you are familiarized with custom training groups, you can just use Keras. So here, it's quite similar. Everything is similar. Just for training, we have not defined anything like distributed training steps and all. We have just defined data set. We have encoded our data set and just defined data set objects. We haven't even cared about distributed data set and all. Keras takes care of all that. We just do model.fit. Here it's not like that we will validate after every few steps. It will be like doing for few epochs. So just doing model.fit, it takes care of everything, and you do not need to worry about a single. Similarly, model.predict, you do not need to define it, it's all predefined. So training it is very easy, but if you have to do something custom, so it becomes like exponentially difficult. That's why I've taken to address these kind of distributed training step and all that, so that you can control all the functionalities. Yeah, so you can see it's started. So after every 100 steps, I am validating to see if the model has not started overfitting. So after every 100 steps, it will be printing the validation score and training score together. I hope everything is clear with you. Let it complete like one, two steps, then we can. And if you have any question, you can ask that. Let me
Yes,
see.
some people are asking a few doubts. Let me just pop them up here.
Okay, so I will be able to see it here.
Yeah, we have a question from Vijay. It's please can you compare between TPU and GPU?
Okay, okay. We can again go through the like this slide. I can talk about the speed up you get for like yeah, you can see. So this is the best GPU I have ever used till now. Like it's available on GCP, so you can see how much speed it gives. Now you can see like we are now using. It's not here actually. We are using TPU V3, which is faster than TPU V2. So you can find it like here. So it gets this much of speed up. And what are the differences? Like I told, that TPU is like a mesh to compute. It's only made for doing matrix multiplication and all that. GPU has like processors, but they are independent and they work parallelly. But TPU is like a mesh, and all things happen together for even a single multiplication. And it takes a lot of less memory actually. Like you can see here, when we do computation on GPU, at every step you get output which is stored on GPU or CPU. But in TPU, you can see like no footprint is left. Like it's not storing anything in intermediate step. You just get the result here. So this is quite a difference. In coding, it's not much difference. Like if you are using Keras, you will not find even a single difference. Just setting up is quite difficult, but if you have to customize it, then it's a difficult job. So yeah, I think I've answered your question.
We have another question. What is the data set size?
Okay, so the in total its size is like 90 MB. Like I have reduced it to this much, but it was like uh, there were 20 lakhs of example in training. So I've reduced by 10. So it's now 2 lakh to take much less time. But it can be like 20 lakh to 50 lakh. Like, okay.
We have one more question. This is probably the last one. Uh, it's how to check which is the best model with optimizer.
Okay, so like competition, Kaggle competition is all about that. Like how much experiments, how much you have that instinct to try out different things. So one good thing is to start with the like state of the art. Adam is used everywhere, so you can check out its papers. Like Adam is overpowering other. Like Ranger is now used a lot. You can use Ranger also. Learning rate is like quite you can common sense like this, because uh, transformer is already trained, so I will be using less learning rate with it, uh, small learning rate. Then like head is head is we are training for the first time, so we will be using high learning rate for it. Optimizer, it's quite like common to use Atom as usual. Now raw model, how to choose a model. So Hugging Face provides for NLP. Hugging Face provides a list of models, pre-trained models. You can go through which model is trained for which purpose on which data set. So if it resembles your work, you can definitely use that one.
Okay. Thank you, Rishabh, for conducting such an amazing event. Uh,
Thanks.
and I guess there'll be more comments from the audience a little later on. So I hope you
Yeah,
can spend some time in answering their doubts
yeah,
later.
sure, sure,
So
sure.
again, thank you very much.
Thanks for having time.
Okay. So we are done with the first session, everyone, and welcome to the second session. This is going to be about GCP, and it's going to be taken over by Sathish VJ. and he's a Google developer expert. So, hi, sir. You can start right now.
Hi. Are you able to share my screen? Do
Just
you
a
have
minute.
access to my screen now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we good to go?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for, or if you're attending from other parts of the world, good whatever time it is that you're at. So today I'm going to talk to you about getting certified on Google Cloud and how it will be useful for your career, right? And what it means, why you should, why companies feel it is important that you get certified, and therefore how it is valuable to you also directly. About me, a quick brief. I've been mentoring a few companies and people over the years. In the recent past, I've invested in a few startups, generally done about 20 years in technology, starting from device drivers and now doing scalable web apps and infrastructure and a lot of other things. I've been selected as a Google developer expert, also authorized trainer for Google Cloud. Google selects a few people across the world to teach Google Cloud to others. So I do that also. As a part of a lot of my learnings, I've also um, recognized that there was a need to help people with how to solution for Google Cloud. And I started based on feedback and what I saw. I also started a channel called Awesome GCP, which is on YouTube, right? So we'll talk about that a little more later. The other reason why I'm a little qualified to talk about this, I pretty much have all the certifications for Google Cloud. And based on that, I've been doing a lot of work and helping a lot of people. And I thought a talk like this would help you also get some direction and start getting your own certifications. So where did this all start? What I used to do was every time I wrote one of the exams, one of the certification exams, whether I knew I already passed it or not, I would go back and write a bunch of notes saying, hey, this was my experience, right? These are the subjects I studied. And these were the areas that I got questions from and all of that. And I did that for each of my certifications. And when I did these posts, obviously they were getting a lot of hits. And once people knew that I was already doing it, they came back with a lot of questions, right? So they were asking me questions like, how do I prepare for this? What kind of questions you get? Is this a valuable certification and all of that, right? And based on that, and of course, based on their own need to get certified, they went and wrote a lot of these exams. But what I also got, unfortunately, was a lot of people telling me that they have flunked the exam, right? These exams are not easy. These exams are actually quite difficult, especially in comparison to some of the other cloud certifications. People have told me that the Google Cloud certifications are actually quite difficult to pass. There have been multiple failures, and the exams are also tough because they don't give you feedback saying, hey, you know what, you're weak in these areas, you need to study those areas. It doesn't give you anything, right? It just gives you a final pass or fail, which means you don't know exactly where you're at, right? You have to figure out now on your own where to study, which paths to study, and which areas to start looking at again. So recovering from a failed exam was proving to be quite difficult. Now, the question to me was, why were people failing, right? And based on a lot of feedback and discussions with people, there were quite a few things that I realized people are having trouble with. Okay, so individuals, they were taking the courses, and when they wrote the exam, they were just demoralized to take it again because they had no feedback on why they were failing, right? They didn't know for what reason they had flunked this exam, and they don't know what to do next, which path to study. I was talking to managers of companies, and they say, we are giving all our employees full access to the online courses. They're going through all the material, but they're not going and giving the exam, right? Or if they're giving the exam, probably they're flunking. But more often not, there was essentially a gap between the courses that they were taking and actually going and being successful at the exam itself, right? So there was something that was slipping between those two things. One of the things I saw across courses was that they tend to kind of mimic the documentation, which is essentially what you should do, right? If the documentation is a single source of truth, the courses based on that is going to be similar to, right? What people would do is when they go to the course, they're like, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that makes sense. This makes sense. But then they have not really imbibed it, right? They've not fully understood what are the implications and how to do, how to solution based on that information. So what happens is when you're reading through the documentation or when you're taking any of the courses, you typically tend to just skim through the material, right? You skim through the material, which is easy, but then it's very difficult to retain it and to be able to apply it. Or it is just purely reference, right? You can go look at documentation once in a while and say, okay, how do I do this? Go figure it out, run a search, figure it out, and then do it. But somehow there is something failing there. Yeah. So a typical experience that I had, and people kind of resonated with that, was the idea that you tend to be very confident before you go for the exam, right? But during the exam, you're like, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to pass this. There's no way I'm going to pass this, because you feel it's way more difficult than what you're expecting, right? Which ends up being quite bad for people because they end up flunking the exam, which is very unfortunate, right? So I've been doing a lot of these things to try and help people learn the right way to solution the question, approach the questions in the right way. And I will take you to the end of, I'll take you to that towards the end of this presentation. But between that and now, let me walk you through why these certifications are important, how to prepare for them, and what it means for your career. Okay. So the thing is also, though people have flunked on this exam, and it is known to be a difficult exam, you can conquer it. Okay, there are multiple people who've gone through the process of having flunked the exam. Then we've had discussions. I've guided them in some way, given them some tips and tricks, and they have then since been able to complete and and succeed at these exams and certifications, right? So it is difficult, but it is doable, right? If you just approach it the right way. So I want you to do that too, right? I want you to get these certifications and build your career based on that. Why are these quite difficult, right? The way this certification exam words the questions, it mimics a real world scenario, right? So what do you expect to happen in a real world project? Let's say you're going into a meeting room and we have to decide what particular technology or solution to choose, right? What's going to happen? You're going to have other people who are going to say, hey, you know what? How about we do this? Or how about we do that other thing? And somebody says, hey, I've got experience doing this and I know it worked. Why don't we do that? Often the client is also involved. The client says, hey, you know what? I've heard some client, some other person doing something like this, some other vendor doing something like this. Why can't we do that? So typically there are multiple opinions, right? And not only are there multiple opinions, some of them are very valid. They're equally valid, or maybe there's only a slight difference between them. It is for us as practitioners, as architects, as engineers, we need to be able to pick and choose the right approach to solutioning all of this, right? Among the options, among the discussions, whether it's just on Google Cloud or whether it's an alternate vendor or whether it's an open source technology, we have to understand among this list of solutions, which is the right approach. And there is possibly a recommended approach, right? There might be more than one way of doing it, but usually there's a recommended approach, which seems to have worked well for a large group of people in the past. So our job as engineers and architects is to be able to make these architecture decisions and of course implement and execute them also. Okay. As I said, the certification exam questions follow the same pattern. Okay, they put you in a situation and they make up a scenario. Say, for example, like this, right? So your company processes high volumes of IoT data, right? Now they go into several petabytes. It needs to be written and read very fast. Which storage option would you choose? Now, this is a fairly simple question, the kind of question that you would see in the associate engineer. The profession, it will be a little more difficult. But you are put in a situation, you're thrust into a situation where you are given a scenario of a real world situation where a customer has come in, and they are putting choices in front of you, or you have come up with these choices, right? And now you need to choose among them. Incidentally, this is also something similar to this is something that I consulted on, right? When one of the people that I knew came to me with a request for, hey, you know what, we need to really scale. Can we use Bigtable to do this, right? And then we had to go through the discussion process and figure out maybe Bigtable is not the right solution for them, right? Maybe BigQuery was the right solution for them, and they do some kind of intermediate transfer of data to BigQuery to get moving very quickly. So this back and forth discussion, this making choices between the technologies, is a key part of um, learning for the exam, but it's not just for the exam, remember, right? This is also how you work on real world projects, right? So in learning for this, you are getting a hands-on on what to do in your real life projects and your jobs. The next question is, why get certified? Okay. It is predicted by Gartner and other people or rather, other groups, that enterprises are going to close their on-prem data centers to a large extent by 2025. Right, about 80% of conventional data centers, which essentially means that these are buildings and computers run by the company itself. Right, a lot of these companies have their own data center; they're not on the public cloud like, say, Google Cloud. It is expected that 80% of them is going to close by 2025. Right? That's a significant number in about 5 years. So what you should expect to see in the coming years is that there's going to be a lot more opportunity in public cloud. Right? You can see this also, the number of job opportunities in the public cloud, the demand for skills in the public cloud is growing rapidly. Right? And if that is something that you want to be a part of, you should definitely consider getting more expertise on this. Then within the public cloud itself, as you know, today AWS is the largest, right? And Azure is the next biggest. But Google Cloud is doing very, very well in this area, right? They are absolutely killing it. In fact, by a 2019 RightScale report, it is said that you can see that the largest growing segment within this is pretty much Google Cloud, right? That's where the most experiments are happening. That's where most people want to try it out. But my view on this is that they significantly underestimated what would be the uptake and growth of Google Cloud. Right? This was a report from 2019 by Google itself, where they've expanded the number of customers to a large extent. Right? And it is still growing. This year, they have added a lot of marquee customers to the portfolio. So Google Cloud, they're very ambitious with the new head, Thomas Kurian. They are rapidly growing, right? So there's a huge push from Google itself to grow their enterprise portfolio, which is showing in their customer adoption, in the amount of sales they are getting, the number of new customers they are adding. Just in the recent past, there have been many new enterprise migration products released. Okay, and this is just amazing for me. Today, a lot of these companies are unable to move to the cloud because they're locked in their local data center. What Google is providing is an ability for them to migrate to the public cloud without making a lot of changes, which means that it is easing the transition for a lot of people. So that being the case, we should also see even further and faster growth. And while this 80% is moving, Google is in a good place to pull in a lot of those customers onto the Google platform, which means, again, more opportunities for people working in it, more job opportunities, and more growth opportunities for all of us. Okay? So just in the recent past, they have released a bare metal solution, which allows for moving, say, workloads like Oracle, which is a huge investment for existing companies. And currently, they run the whole thing on-prem. Right? SAP, very interestingly, has their own data center entirely powered by Google Cloud. Right? So Google is managing that entire data center and has a single customer operating on it, which is SAP. And I don't know if you know, but SAP is is huge in terms of the reach it has into all the Fortune 1000 companies. Right? VMware, another big solution on-prem, they're giving an easy way to transition and migrate that into Google Cloud. So Google Cloud is really killing it in terms of the number of products and solutions and the offerings it has for both startups and enterprises. For you, in the last couple of years, the highest paid certifications has been the Google Cloud Certified Professional Cloud Architect, right? The Professional Cloud Architect. This was a report from 2019 by Forbes. In 2020, Global Knowledge again had another survey within which it again shows that the Professional Cloud Architect from Google significantly beats out the remaining cloud certifications in terms of customer interest, right? The number of opportunities there are higher, which is why it is also paid higher. This field, it adds value to what you're doing. For me personally, it has been very useful, right? So what used to happen was I've been working on Google Cloud for quite some time, but I usually worked only on App Engine, right? When I had to build applications, I would use App Engine to build that. And any customer came, I would say, hey, we can use App Engine to do that. What the certification forces you to do is to go study everything, right? Whether you are going to be immediately using or not, you need to understand all the serverless options, managed options, and maybe the lift and shift options and everything, right? You need to understand all the storage options. You might not have used all of them, but studying for the exam pushes you to understand what these options are. And once you understand the options, you're able to have a larger repertoire of tools at your disposal, right? That you can apply to the customer that you're working with. So this has been very useful for me. So when I did the cloud architect and data engineer, it just exposed me to all the possibilities in that field within Google Cloud, of course, right? There are, of course, things that are outside. Not everything is there on Google Cloud, but what Google Cloud offers, I was able to understand what is possible, right? Again, given the wide range of options, I don't say I'm an expert on all of them, but at least I know that something is possible. When a client comes in and says, hey, you know what, we need to do this, I can at least tell them, yes, that is possible. How I do that might be a part of a second research, right? If you want to go deeper into something like network engineer, security engineer, DevOps engineer, you've got an option for that also. So some of these are things that I wouldn't have picked up on my own, right? Some of the details about being a core network engineer, it's not something that I knew right off the bat because I come primarily from a development background. But having studied for the network engineer, now I know much better, right? And I've got more tools at my disposal that I can help my customers with. Where do you need certifications and why is it important? So let me ask you, let me tell you this general thing, right? So today, the professions with a very high consumer risk are highly regulated, right? So if you're going to be a doctor, you can't just claim to be a doctor, walk in and operate somebody on an operating table. You just can't do that, right? You need to go through a process of getting licensed, right? There is a regulatory mechanism that controls a number of people, or that rather filters people to say, yes, you're qualified to do that. Now, as a part of previous presentations like this, I used to ask a question, right? I used to ask this question, would you get on a flight with an unlicensed pilot, right? If you were traveling somewhere, you were taking a flight, and if you knew that the pilot was unlicensed, would you get on that plane? For me, it was a rhetorical question, right? You know, it's of course, that's not going to happen, but would you, like, hypothetically, is that something you would do? It so happens that this was not rhetorical anymore, right? In May this year, May 2020, there was a Pakistani airline, a flight PK 8303, I think. PK 8303 crashed in Karachi, killing more than 100 people, right? The final count was close to 100. When they did an investigation of why the crash happened, something else came out, right? Apparently, 1 in 3 pilots in Pakistan have fake licenses, right? About 40% of Pakistani pilots do not have a proper license, right? And it did so much damage to the country and the country's reputation, right? What has happened in the immediate aftermath is that the European Union has suspended all flights from Pakistan, right? Not all flights, flights operated by the Pakistani airlines. Malaysia, which is there's a lot of traffic there also, they have grounded the pilots with a Pakistani origin, right? So what is happening is that when there is this huge implication for what is happening and how people are using it, like these highly regulated professions, there is a licensing mechanism that people go through. But here's the thing, as of now, cloud by itself does not have a very strong government regulation. But like I said, Tell me a profession today, tell me a line of business today that is not using the cloud. Think of one that is, and you would be hard pressed to find one, right? Clearly, there is. We talked about medical, right? There is multiple things that are running, right? Your medical records, a lot of things that are being done today. In fact, medical research is happening on the cloud, right? It is being handled by the cloud. We saw also aviation. I used to work for a company that did a lot of aviation related work, right? They were building the air traffic controller systems. A lot of the building systems all came from one company that I used to work for. But it's not only those two, right? Today, whether you're working in telecommunication, whether you're working in agriculture, whether you're working in education, in finance and banking, or whether you're just in Netflix, right? If you're just using streaming systems, say like this, the streaming that we are doing now, YouTube and Netflix and Amazon Prime and all of them are dependent on the cloud, right? Cloud today has become central to pretty much anything that you're doing in the world today, right? Lives are dependent on it. Businesses are dependent on it. Everything that you do on a daily basis is dependent on the cloud. So when you have critical services that are significantly dependent on the cloud, then cloud itself becomes critical. So today what is happening is even the smallest of industries, right? Let's just take, say, food delivery. Food delivery cannot be done without the cloud today, right? Everything is working on the cloud. And you might think, oh, it's just food delivery, who cares? It has huge implications. And for me, once it did have, right? I had to say, I was having a throat infection at one point, and I had to take some medicine after having some food, right? And we were doing other things, and we did not have I was not at home, and I needed food delivered. And what happened was the food delivery got delayed. Right? I booked it once, and they said, "Hey, they can't deliver." And after again another hour or something, I booked again. Again, they said they can't deliver. Right? So it pushed me into a critical situation where I had to have my medicine after I took my food. So even a simple thing like food delivery is become critical now because people have become dependent on it. And obviously, things like aviation and medicine and pharmaceutical and telecommunications, you can't do without it, right? So what this implies for organizations and enterprises that are working in the cloud is that they have qualified people to do this, right? It does not mean that every person who's got a cloud certification is immediately an expert. In the same way that every person who's got a license, a medical license, is immediately an expert. They have to also go through a process of being mentored, of apprenticeship, and of being a what do you call intern in some of these places to gain their expertise, right? But at least it filters out a lot of people who are probably unqualified yet. And like I said, because these are critical services, companies don't want to take the risk, right? You would rather have people who are more qualified than otherwise. Google itself has published a few documents, a few white papers where they talk about cloud adoption, right? And this is not only applicable to Google Cloud. You can apply to any kind of cloud. There's another framework that they've suggested also for AI adoption. If you look at this diagram, a critical part of it connects people and technology, right? Here, people and technology again. I'll just draw that out. And the one piece is, how do you get people to connect to technology, which is a learning aspect? All these other things are also necessary, right? You need to be able to scale. You need to secure it. You need to be able to have executive sponsorship to build out some of these cloud projects. Yes, all of them are necessary. But among that, also equally important is the ability to ensure that you've got qualified people doing this work, right? The right people who've got the expertise are the ones that are handling the technology. As part of this framework they have put up, they have three phases, right? There's a tactical, strategic, and transformation. It talks about companies at different stages of cloud adoption. Tactical, which is the simplest. Transformational is where the company becomes completely cloud first, right? They're born into the cloud. Everything is done as part of the cloud. Where something like tactical would be, they move one piece into the cloud, not transformational across the organization, but get something done. Along each of these paths, there is also a process of learning, right? So among other things, like we need to find the right leadership, we need to be able to scale correctly, we need to be able to secure the organization. Learning becomes a key part of all of that, right? Rishabh talked about AI adoption. I mean, doing a lot of work in AI. In the AI adoption framework, also the same process is there, right? The learning process, depending on the organization and the stage at which the organization is, whether it's tactical, strategic, or transformation, it has implications on the education required, the qualifications required. Excuse me. Okay. It's not just within Google, of course, that they need to make sure that people are qualified. What Google does is they partner with other companies, like the HCL, Accenture, Cognizance of the world, and they spread the use of these technologies. So when these companies also want to become a Google partner on Google Cloud, they also need to have certified people as part of their organization, right? So if you're going to have a basic membership, you need to have at least 2 people who are professionally certified within your company. And if you're going to have become a premier partner, you need to have at least 12 people who are qualified. This was an announcement some time ago where HCL announced a partnership with Google Cloud, where they're saying they're going to get 5,000 trained experts on Google Cloud, right? I mean, you're not thinking about 5 people, 10 people. You're talking about thousands of people. I was having a discussion with somebody internally at Google, and I was telling them, hey, I was seeing this company that talked to me, a small company that talked to me and said they need to find about 10 certified people. Then I talked to a mid-sized company, and they're saying, hey, we need to get or certify about 40 people quickly. And I was like, those are numbers you're seeing. And the person from Google said, those are not the numbers we are seeing. We are seeing tens of thousands, right? That's the kind of adoption that Google Cloud has. It's just phenomenal. It's huge, right? And to meet this demand, they would like to have more people who are properly qualified. Apart from that, if you want to become an authorized trainer, also you need to be qualified. You need to have a certification of either architect or a data engineer, right? And you get to teach Google Cloud to other people, provided you pass the certification process, okay? With that, I have covered some of the reasons for why you would do the certification, right? And what is the purpose of it, what it means for your career, and how it will help your career goal. Now, a quick view into what are the different certifications. There are 2 levels of certification. There's the associate, and then there's the professional certifications. The associate is just 1 right now, and the professional has, I think, about 8 or 9 at this point. Okay. This keeps switching the wrong way. Anyway, no problem. So among all these, there are all these certifications right now, and they are available. The way you would choose is that the associate is typically for people with a smaller amount of experience, typically 0 to 3 years of experience. I've also seen college students do it. So you don't need to have a job to do this, right? You can do this even while you're in college. And typically it means that you are able to become a part of a team that is working on Google Cloud and be able to manage systems, right? That is the expectation. Whereas when you take one of the professional certifications, you're typically expected to have about 3 or more years. Now, this again is just a recommendation, right? Because it means that you will have a fair amount of knowledge across the system, and you have the ability to look at it at a fairly large scale. It does not stop you. Excuse me. It does not stop you from taking the certification, even if you have just a year of experience, right? So this requires a slightly higher view. All the professional certifications require that. Okay. So, and there are multiple of that. I'm not going to go through each of them, but you have these. You've got the video with the slide now. You can look at the detail, or you can look at it online, right? So pick what is appropriate for your level of expertise and what you're trying to get done. In preparing for the exam, I've got a few strategies you can use that you can study, right? Now, Google Cloud, when it started a few years ago, it had just 1 or 2 products, right? So around 2012, it had about 4 products or 3 products in total. By 2013, it added a few more. And it kept adding a few more year on year. And somewhere around 2017, 18, it just blew up, right? It just went ballistic on the number of products and solutions it has. Today, it has about 200 plus solutions and products. And as a part of the exam, you are expected to study quite a bit of this, right? The exam is not just about one line in this. Usually the exam is about a whole group of this, maybe 1 or 2 boxes, maybe an entire column sometimes, or 1 or 2 columns, and there are different exams that cover different things. So this is a huge amount of information to understand and study. If that be the case, you can't be an expertise in all of them. I mean, think about where you are today itself, right? Maybe you understand one language, but would you consider an expertise in 10 languages? Here you've got a problem that you need to have a good understanding about 20 to 30 technologies at least at a time, right? Pretty much anything you take up. Apart from some of the languages, if you're a cloud developer, you need to understand the development part, but also all the other technologies. So this is huge in terms of the amount of learning that you'll have to do. There are multiple courses, books, and documents. So there is official courses from Google itself on Coursera and Plural site, and of course other places like Linux Academy, which got bought over by Cloud Guru recently. Cloud Academy, Udemy, all of these have courses. You can start with any of them. Typically, I've found that if you've taken any one course, the next course only has incremental value, right? Because almost all of them tend to kind of mimic the documentation, right? Here's what the documentation says. We're going to take a part of that and provide it for you to simplify the boundaries of what you have to learn. For me, my best friend has been the Google Cloud Docs, right? That has the latest information, and that has the most comprehensive information. But the problem with the Google Cloud Docs is that it's boundless, right? They're giving you intense amount of information, both in depth and wide. And it's difficult to get a boundary on how much you have to study and stop. Where do you stop when you've got so much detail? At some point, you need to stop learning, right? What is that point? It's difficult to find that, right? So in that sense, the courses and the books give you some initial manageable limits, right? It gives you some boundary. You work within this, learn so much, and then you do all the exercises and labs also. So I would recommend the courses and books. I just don't have a view to recommend any one particular course or book, because it would mean that I'd have had to study everything, right? And then say, this is good. I haven't done that. I mostly studied the Google Cloud Docs, and maybe occasionally in the initial stages, I studied one or two courses, but I haven't updated myself on all the courses, and I won't be able to recommend any one particular one. What I have done is, though, I have collected a lot of material in this open GitHub repo that you can look up. So I will give you a link to this at the end of the slides. Essentially, I've collected like material on posts and courses and videos and all of that in one GitHub repo that you can use as a central source of all your learning, right? A central source of all the material that you pick up. Apart from that, this is superb, right? There is a thing called Quick Labs, which essentially provides provision labs that walk you through one particular step or understanding of a technology or solution, right? So this is very useful to get hands-on experience, because otherwise you would have to do all the setup, right? Setting up the project, setting up the VMs. A lot of this is done for you. And not only that, it walks you through the steps and says, do this to get this understanding, do this to get this understanding, right? So I strongly recommend Quick Labs as a way to understand Google Cloud. Hey, are we good? I was wondering if the screen has changed. Kevin, are we? Hey, Kevin.
Is your screen on?
My screen is on.
Oh, sorry about that nuisance earlier.
Yeah, I think you switched over. Okay, cool. So back to the slides. Like I said, please use Quick Labs. I've also collected a lot of free codes, and every once in a while they do give out some free codes and free information. I mean, free month access and all that. Please use this. Quick Labs is very, very useful for your learning. Okay. When you're preparing for the exam, there are a lot of online practice exams. Some of them were ridiculously bad, right? I used to be able to finish about 50 questions in 10, 15 minutes and get like 95, 96% right? But on the actual exam, it is much tougher. So I would strongly suggest that you look at the official practice exam. There is an official practice exam for each of the certifications. Do that and see what is the nature of the question, because they tend to be a little long-winded. Yeah. I strongly advise using exam dumps, right? I've heard there are exam dumps. I haven't used them. It is against the rules of the exam to use these exam dumps, and it actually cripples you in some way to depend on the exam dumps. Okay, don't do that, right? Study for the exam, do some of the practice exams, and learn the material, right? Because as I said, the exam is only a reflection of what you're going to do later, right? It is by itself, it is not going to serve you anything in a big way. So make sure that you learn it well. Okay. One of the key parts to learn is what is called best practices, right? As I said, there are multiple ways to approach some of this solutioning. But Google recommends, hey, here is a best practice in adopting this technology. So this is a very important thing to learn as part of your learning. In fact, what I've done is on the Awesome GCP certifications GitHub repo, I've collected a list of the best practices, right? So this again can be a central site that you can go look for best practices across all these technologies. So please use that also. Another very useful material is this thing called the decision flowchart. Okay, so there's this person called Grace who has created flowcharts of how to go through the decision-making process. So, for example, right, let's take one of them. If you have to choose, which part of Google Cloud Storage, which particular feature you want to use within Google Cloud Storage, she has made a decision chart saying, if it is this, then choose this part. If it is the other one, choose the other one, right? And this is a common practice when you're doing the architecture exam, right? You need to make decisions among options that you have in terms of technologies and solutions. I think Grace has kind of stopped updating some of them, or it's not up to date. I myself have been updating it though, and I've already used it as a part of the videos that I'm doing at Awesome GCP. I'll give you a link to that fairly soon. So I've already started doing updating that and making new flowcharts also, right? So please, when you watch the videos, and I'll also publish a separate post where you can see all these flowcharts. As a person who is working on Google Cloud, not only do you need to know the core GCP subjects, but you also need to see it in comparison with open source and general technologies, right? So you need to see if Cassandra is an open source technology, if MapReduce is an open source technology, how do you use that within Google Cloud? Or is there a better way or another option compared to Cassandra that you can use within Google Cloud, right? So not only do you need to understand Google Cloud technologies, you also need to understand the generally available technologies and the comparisons of that, right? Because the customer is going to come and say, you know what, we already are using Cassandra or HBase or MapReduce. Why can't we just use that, right? What is the reason for that? So to an extent, you need to understand the differences and usefulness of these. You will also recognize, excuse me, if you write multiple exams, that there is a significant overlap between some of these exams. So if you're studying for one, it is very useful as a step to the next one also, right? Because you will have cross questions from all these areas. For example, as an architect, you need to understand storage. As a cloud associate cloud engineer, you need to understand security and networking, right? So it's not only networking questions in the networking exam, you'll find it across all the exams, right? So there is considerable overlap, and that's helpful because once you get one certification, the next one becomes a little easier. Right? Then one thing I noticed was that some of the questions are very tough, right? So when I wrote the exam, I was like, man, I'm going to flunk this immediately because questions were too tough. And I was like, I don't even know what this is about. Remember to not lose focus at that point. Don't give up, right? Because sometimes these questions are not marked for the final exam, right? They're trial questions that might be given or used for the future, but not necessarily marked for you, right? And I found this happens quite a few times. And irrespective of me being like, okay, there's no way I'm going to pass this exam, I did pass all of them, right? So even if they're tough, remember not to lose focus. Don't give up. Keep going through it. Understand at least. At the very least, even if you flunk the exam, you know the pattern of the exam. You know the kind of questions that you're getting, right? So go through all of them with focus and with confidence, right? We'll see the result at the end. It's also useful to get a few information kind of predefined. Like, for example, you need to be able to figure out if you're going to transfer data from one part to another, depending on the amount of data, you have different solutions, right? If it's a low bandwidth solution, you can transfer low amount of data. So if they say you're going to have to transfer 100 terabytes, right? You need to figure out how much time it is going to take over a 10 MB or a 10 GB connection, right? So depending on that, you've got different choices to make. So have a quick number, a ballpark figure of how much time is required for, say, some of this transfer. Like that, you'll find a few other things that you need to commonly apply. Remember, in the exam, they don't give you pen and paper or pencil or paper or whatever. They just don't give you that. So you will have to do some of these calculations in your head. I get a lot of questions that has a "it depends" answer, right? So the question that I guess is, how much time will it take for me to learn for the exam? That depends on where you're starting from. If you know nothing about the cloud, it'll take you long, right? If you're already extremely good, if you've got a lot of certifications, say from other clouds, the transition becomes much easier. So I have heard of people who've studied for 3 days and passed the exam. I've also heard of people who study for 3 months and flunked the exam. So there really is no fixed time saying if you study for 1 month, you'll be done with this, right? When do you stop studying? Given the boundaries, right? It really can't say that. Because like I said, sometimes you get a question from some remote corner of the documentation that you don't know about, right? So it's not very clear where you have to stop studying. The idea is get some of the key parts very strong, and the others just keep browsing and skimming through so that you have an idea of it. Right? The same question of how do I know I've covered enough? All these questions are something that I get very often, and therefore I've got a Medium post about the frequently asked questions that goes into a little more detail about each of them. I don't have the time to cover it today, so I would refer you to that Medium post where I talk about the frequently asked questions. Now, among the questions I also saw, like I said, right, one of the things that I did was I started working on this YouTube channel called Awesome GCP, which has proved to be very useful for a lot of people. As I said, there was a gap between people studying for the courses and taking the certification, right? And I said, okay, maybe there's a usefulness in filling that gap. So I've got a free YouTube channel that teaches you to work on these questions, right? So definitely go look it up. I've got it even at the bottom, youtube.com/awesomegcp, where it walks you through the process of approaching these questions. It approaches in a way that tells you why the wrong answers won't work and why the right answer works, right? So this connects you and tends to give you more confidence than just studying the material, right? Because it pushes you into a situation where you need to contend with these options and figure out how to answer them. So a lot of people have found value in it. I recommend that you go check out youtube.com/awesomegcp. So I've got playlists for each of the certifications, and I'm building more also. Right now, we are going through the data engineer. I'm already complete with the DevOps, the associate cloud engineer, and the professional architect, right? And the remaining, I'm continuing to do that, and it's completely free, right? So do check that out. I also have, as part of the playlist, what I said, crossover section. Remember, I said that there's a lot of overlap between these exams, right? There are some common areas. So even if I've covered, say, one question in the data engineer, but it's applicable for the professional architect, you'll find that as part of the playlist. So watch the entire playlist. And the associate cloud engineer is a base for all the exams, right? Every exam requires the understanding that you should have for the associate cloud engineer. So you continue with that playlist also, right? So that entire playlist is very useful. As I'm getting the feedback that I'm getting for that has been very positive. I can see that people are passing the exam and finding a lot of value in going through that. So I continue to do that for free, right? So please do try it out. The rest of the part is a little bit fairly straightforward. You can book the exam online. There are multiple centers in India. You have to choose from when I was writing the exams, you had to choose at least 2 days prior, right? So if you're writing the exam, say on Tuesday, you'd have to book it today, right? You can't book it the previous day. But of course, it depends on the availability. If there's a huge rush, then you won't be able to do that. Right now, of course, because of the COVID situation, you might not be able to go to a test center. So what Google has started doing is they've made some of these exams available online. So you can take it from the comfort of your house. Right now, only 3 are available: the associate cloud engineer, the professional architect, and the professional data engineer. The remaining should come online sometime in the future, but not exactly sure when. Okay, so that will happen. When you take the exam, of course, it is paid. The certifications typically cost $125 for the associate and $200 for the professional. But in India, you typically get about a 30% discount to account for to account for a lower purchasing power parity, right? So it would work out to be about $90 or about $140 for the associate and professional certifications, which will amount to, I mean, this is about 6,005 to about 10,000 rupees. So it's not particularly cheap, but consider it as an investment, right? It's very useful for your career. So why not do that as you would invest in any other thing? A common question I get is, what should I do first, the associate or the profession? I strongly recommend that you do the associate, because it sets a good base for all the other exams. It's also an easier exam. So once you get a view of how the questions are worded, how the exam is, after you do the associate, it becomes easier to do the profession. So a lot of people, like I said, I've seen them become completely demoralized after taking the professional exam first and saying, hey, you know what, I don't think I can ever pass this. The recommendation that I give them, the suggestion that I give them is, okay, just keep that aside, go back to the associate engineer, understand that completely, learn that properly, then come back and do the professional. And that has worked for a lot of people, right? So do the associate first is my recommendation. You don't have to do it that way, right? You can do the professional first. There's no problem. If you're sure about it, sure, why not, right? But if you had a choice, do the associate first. These exams are typically 2 hours long, and I've got 50 questions each. Plus or minus a few. There's no pausing, right? You can't say I want to take a 15-minute break. I mean, you can take it, but it's on your time, right? You're not allowed to typically have snacks or anything between that. You can take a water drink, drink something in between, but typically you're not allowed to eat anything. You're not given any pencil, paper, and all of that. These are things to know just in between, right? So make sure that you've had at least some snack before you go in, because especially if you're traveling somewhere to write the exam, it's going to take you an hour to get there, right? Then it might take you a little delay to start the exam, then 2 hours. So you're at least 3-4 hours without food, which might affect some of you, right? And make sure that you've got at least something in your stomach when you're going for the exam. The exam questions, like I said, they're quite scenario driven, right? There are very few direct questions. It doesn't ask you what's the full form of GCP, right? That's not the kind of question. They put you in a situation, right? This one is based on a case study where you have to understand the case study first. Then there is a longer question based on that, right? So if you take some of the online practice tests from some of the courses that I've seen, they give you very simple, silly questions, and that's not how the actual exams are. So practice in the right way. You also have multiple choice questions. There's no essay writing, so it becomes easier, but these are quite tough sometimes, right? The multiple choice ones, where you've got multiple select. The other one's also multiple choice, but there's a multiple select. In a question like this, you can see that the question is quite long, right? If you're answering 50 questions in 2 hours, you've got about 2 minutes per question. And if it's going to be such a long question, you won't even have the time to read through it, right? So time yourself well, and don't spend too much time on each of the questions. I will skip this part about beta exam, but there is it's not for the faint of heart. It's a 4-hour-long beta exam where they're trying out the exam for a few select people who are willing to take it up, right? I would not particularly recommend it unless if you're a glutton for, if you know a subject very well and you want to take it, you can. But 4 hours, which turns out about 5-6 hours, is a lot of time doing one exam. And like I said, when I took about 3 of these exams, they said you can't have a snack in between, right? So it's about 6 or 7 hours without food, and by the end of it, I was losing focus, right? And it's a tough exam, but if you do it, it's a feather in your cap that even for 4 hours and sometimes without any study material available, you're still able to pass these early exams, right? So that is great. At the end of the exam, you'll just get a pass-fail result, right? You don't get a feedback on which areas you're weak in or which areas, right? So the end, it will tell you've either passed or you failed, and you'll get a certification after typically in a few days for the generally available exams, but for the others in a few weeks. Right now, there is a delay in getting the certification results. I mean, you get the pass-fail immediately, but the certificate you get a little later because there's been a huge spike in the number of people taking up the exam. And once they went online, they're trying to iron out a few early teething issues. Yeah. So there's a bit of a delay now, a few weeks, but you do get the immediate result and you know whether you've passed or failed, right? And that's usually doesn't change unless there has been significant cheating or cheating of any sort. Your exam results won't change. Okay. This is something that you need to be careful about. Where is that? There's a cool off period, right? If you fail the exam first time, you need to wait at least 14 days to retake. If you fail it again, 60 days. If you fail again, you have to wait at least a year. So I remember somebody who didn't know this, and they took the exam continuously, and then they suddenly realized, oh my God, now I don't have a option to fail anymore, because they had to get the certification, right? So remember, there's a cool off period, and study properly before you attempt it. Okay. A lot of people ask me, my company only reimburses if I pass a professional exam. But remember that a lot of these companies don't pay you if you flunk the exam. So if you directly jump to the professional exam and you flunk it, you are losing more money right from the start. Right? If your company sponsors even the flunked attempts, okay, fine, go ahead and take multiple attempts. But remember, there also there is a cool-off period. Yeah? So you can't take them continuously day after day. So even if your company is only paying for the professional, it is useful for you to take the associate exam first, so that you have a good idea of how these exams are being conducted, right? The kind of exams. So you will spend a little money on your own, but it will be easier for you. Otherwise, the pressure to get the professional right on the first attempt is much higher, and it is tougher also. Okay. So just watch out for that. Okay. The certificate itself, you will get the certificate and a badge. It is valid for 2 years right now. After which you'll have to recertify again, right? The cloud is moving so fast that the things that I learned 2 years ago are sometimes outdated, right? Forget 2 years ago. What I learned even a few months ago is sometimes outdated. So they want you to refresh your knowledge fairly quickly, and they want you to be qualified for what is current rather than what is something outdated. In the last section, we'll go over the perks and benefits. When you pass these exams, you get perks from Google Cloud, which is quite nice, right? I've got a bunch of these now, from bags to sweaters to caps and mugs and all of these things, which is a little bit of, it's nice to have them and show it around, right? So that's wonderful. But I think the biggest perk and the biggest benefit of this is the fact that you are part of an elite group, right? It is not easy to understand everything about the cloud. This is not an easy exam to pass, and it means that, of course, I've taken a jocular approach here, but the key part is that you stand out in terms of what you hold, right? Your job opportunities increase. People need you for the work that you do, for the understanding and the expertise that you have, right? So apart from the bragging rights, it really, really helps your career. And as a part of people who are already certified, I would hope that you would also do your certification. You would also grow in your career. You will contribute to the world of the cloud, and we would absolutely love to have you here. The information. Oh, there's one thing I do want to leave you with, though, right? Now, I've got pretty much all the certifications on Google Cloud, right? Yet, a very sobering thought is that I probably know less than 2% of Google Cloud, right? There is so much to learn. There are so many new technologies that are being released, right? Just in the past few weeks, so many new things have been released. If you look at the, there's a blog post where they update all the new features, right? These are not like bug fixes, like new features coming in every one of these technologies. I can never keep up, right? I just don't know what is everything that is there right now. And then on all of them, each of them are adding so many more features. So having the certification is not does not mean that you're best in the world, right? It just means that it's a platform for you to launch yourself further, right? To get you started on a lot of other things. And I'm not trying to be humble or trying to be falsely modest in saying that, hey, I've got all of these certifications. I teach Google Cloud. I'm a Google developer expert, and yet I know 2%. It's a real fact that this is the truth, right? And at least I'm able to understand that this is the case. So I have to learn every day. I do labs regularly. I try to teach regularly, and I have to attempt to update my knowledge on a daily basis, right? So like I said, it just proves that you have a fairly high level knowledge, and of course that you're good at taking exams and you're able to learn quickly and understand things. You have to continuously learn, right? It's a long, continuous journey, but the certifications is a super start. It's a good way to start. So I thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it later on. I wish you the very best with your own certifications. I have I have done a tweet right now where I give you a link to all of the major things that I've talked about, right? The GitHub repo, my YouTube channel. Currently, there is an offer running for free Coursera and Quick Labs for a month from Google Cloud, the Medium post. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I try and answer as many questions as I can. So this tweet is there. I tweeted just before this talk started. You can go check that out, connect to me, and also follow up on all this material. Okay. With that, I will stop, and do check out the channel. You can also connect with me at Twitter at Sathish VJ. Okay. I will give it over now to Kevin. If there are any questions that people have, I'll be glad to answer them.
Yes, so we have a couple of questions. I'll just pop it up.
Yeah.
Okay, a question from Manjunath. What are the prerequisites before taking up the course, and can non-IT people take it?
Was a question that can non-IT people take it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. The answer is absolutely yes. Yeah. Like I said, there are people who are still in college who've taken this. There are even like managers that I know who are running their own companies who are taking this. Right. So they are in the sales, they're the CEO or whatever, and they're like, to be able to even sell to customers, we need to know what is there. Right. So pretty much anybody can take it. There's no reason why you shouldn't. But I would also say that this is a technical certification, right? So a core understanding of the technology would be very useful and important. Right? It's not that you can't. It's like saying, hey, can an engineer study law? Sure, you can, right? But it involves additional learning. So I wouldn't say it would be easy for somebody who does not understand the IT part, but you can. If you do want to take certifications on Google Cloud that are not IT oriented, there is another one for a business certification, right? So if you're a salesperson, if you are a manager in your company, if you're part of the leadership and you still want to understand Google Cloud, there is a new certification that is available. I would be spending time if I took that up on the web right now, but you can go check it out. You just go to WebSSR, and if you go via the Google Cloud login, you will be able to find a, let me see if we can take that for you, right? You'll be able to find a business certification also. So you can try that, you can try that out. So if I do register for an exam, by the way, this is how you register for an exam, right? So there's a new one called Google Cloud Business Essential Certificate, right? So this has less about the technology part and more about the business aspect. In the Google Cloud technical certifications also, there is a certification for the G Suite engineer, right? Oh, that's not here actually. That is in another section. So if you're working more on G Suite and everything, you have a certification for that also.
So
Yeah.
there's another doubt here.
Yeah.
So what steps can you take when your work is not related to cloud, but you want to get certified and prepare for that?
What steps can you take when your work is totally not related, but just prepare and get certified? I think I answered this question just now. Maybe the question came in while I was talking or the other one, that the business certificate is very useful. If you go into Coursera, there is also Coursera, Pluralsight, and others also, I think, have a course that teaches you the non-technical essentials. Okay, so let me see, while you're maybe picking up some of the other parts. Let's say Google Cloud business, right? Business transformation of Google Cloud, right? So this is a course that you can get from on Coursera, right? And it is delivered by Google Cloud itself. So this would cover various aspects of the kind of thing that Raghu asked right now, where it is not wholly technical, but it gives you a good view of what is possible with Google Cloud, which allows you to do sales, and which allows you to understand what is possible, right? So if you're a startup and you're not technically oriented, but you still need to be able to figure out and have a discussion with your team on the right technologies to choose, a course like this would be potentially useful.
Yeah, one more doubt here.
Yeah.
Is there any machine learning based certification from Google, or is it covered in data engineer certification?
Okay. So to Wade's question on this, as of now, there is a data engineer certification, and as part of the data engineer certification, there is a small part of machine learning. Okay, there's a small part of machine learning involved. But given the scope of data engineering itself, machine learning is actually a small part. So I would very strongly suspect that in the coming, in the coming months or weeks or months, there is a very, very, very high likely, a very high possibility that there is going to be a separate machine learning certification, right? I've seen that some of the other clouds also do it, and machine learning is one of the brightest spots. I mean, almost Google Cloud is brilliant in all the offerings it has, but within that, some of the things that is best known for is machine learning and Kubernetes, right? Of course, all the other things are also amazing, but I'm just saying it stands out significantly. So you should expect a machine learning certification for Google Cloud sometime in the near future. As of now, it is not there, but as of now, it's not there, and the machine learning part is partially included in the data engineer thing, but I'm sure there is going to be a separate one in the future.
That's all the doubts there is for now.
Cool, man.
So there might be a few comments from the audience a little later.
Sure.
So I hope you spare some time in addressing these questions.
Sure, I can stay.
And thank you very much, sir, for such an informative session that you have conducted today.
Thank you, Kevin, and thanks to everybody who's listening in.
Yeah, and to the audience here, I would like to thank you all for sparing your time on your weekend to watch this. And we have more such events coming up. For now, we have another session on Android workshop, which is for beginners mainly, and it starts at 1 o'clock. And just so you know, we as GDG are really growing big, and we are one of the most active communities in India. And as you see in this, as you see the members in this core team, they are the common core team for 3 different organizations. One is GDG Mysore, another one is TensorFlow User Group Mysore, and also a well-known platform called Women in Machine Learning and Data Science. So I also have mentioned about the meetup links. You can check them out here, and stay tuned for further events. So I hope you guys are doing well, and keep learning and stay home, stay safe. Goodbye.